Do we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Going to change things up just a little bit and move the public recognition, public statements to the end of our meeting tonight. So we'll go ahead and start with recognitions. I think we'll answer some questions.
Good evening. So I am Dr. Elizabeth Dawson from Tiger Paw, and today we have Tegan Escalante with us. She is in Miss DeWard's preschool classroom. She'll go to kindergarten next year. And so she was chosen as our representative for collaborative. Miss DeWard, let me know that Tegan does a really, really great job playing with her peers in dramatic play during centers. She does really wonderful whenever they are doing group tasks as far as communicating with her language skills, but also listening, which is a really important part of being able to be a collaborative member of the Tiger Paw family. And so we are so proud of her, and this is Tegan.
Good evening. I'm Mrs. Richard from North Elementary, and I have with me tonight Eli Carlson and his teacher, Miss McLean, and she's going to share a few words about him.
Hi, I'm Mrs. McLean. This is Eli. So this month, our focus has been on collaboration. We talk a lot about this word in our classroom, and we describe it as sharing our thoughts, our opinions, and our ideas with kindness. Eli is such a collaborative leader in our classroom because he does share his ideas. He adds to others and makes all ideas better. He hears others' opinions. He listens carefully before responding, and he creates an environment where his classmates can learn, grow, feel heard, and respected. So we are super proud of Eli for representing our classroom.
Good evening. I am Dr. Scott, the principal at Ozark South, and I have Daliana Yarbrough here. She's a second grader in Miss Orr's class, and I have had the privilege to know her as a first grader and a second grader. Miss Orr says that Daliana exhibits all the portrait of the graduate character traits, but she especially excels at collaboration. Daly is a delight to have in class. She always has a smile on her face and is excited to help others. She is an exemplary model of what collaboration looks like. She loves working with her peers on all things, from playing at recess to team working on difficult concepts throughout the day. Daly truly is one of a kind, and I would echo that.
You want to talk? There, they can see you now.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Capon, the principal at East Elementary, and I have the privilege of presenting to you Miss Helen Underwood. She is our Portrait of a Grad Student of the Month. Her teacher was busy with conferences, so I will deliver the message, but I pretty much echo all the things that her teacher says, all our related arts teachers who interact with her every day. So here it is. Friendly, positive, precious, a delight, wonderful, collaborative. These are just a few traits that describe Helen and the reason she's been selected by East staff as the Student of the Month. She consistently demonstrates the ability to find the good in others, even in challenging situations, and works seamlessly with her peers. Her positive outlook and willingness to support everyone, and I mean everyone, around her make it an valuable part of creating a collaborative culture at our school. Good job, Helen. What about?
Good evening. This is CJ Maxwell, and he is a third grader in Mrs. Patterson's class. And Mrs. Patterson had the following to say about CJ. CJ is always ready to share his ideas with others and is always willing to help. He is so patient with others as he explains skills and concepts to them. He is also very kind to others. He always has an encouraging word to say and tries to make everyone feel included. CJ is the type of leader we look for to steer others in the right direction. He has a very bright future ahead of him, and we can't wait to see who he becomes. Congrats, CJ.
All right, this is Oscar Coleman, and he is a seventh grader at the junior high on Team Australia. So all of his teachers wrote something, but three of them have to do with collaboration. So we're going to focus on those. Oscar is great about collaborating with anyone that I pair him with, regardless of their abilities. He is good at giving input and receiving input from his partners. He also excels at keeping his partners engaged in what we are working on. Oscar is always engaged and has a great attitude. I can depend on him to play his part on clarinet. He also stays after class to help put away chairs and music stands. And the last one is Oscar is an example for all to follow. He always has his work done on time and is always willing to walk around and help other students with their work as well.
This is Finley Nims. Finley is the Finley Alternative School Portrait of a Grad Student of the Month for the trait of collaboration. I've known Finley for 2 years. My favorite thing about Finn is the positive attitude and energy that I can expect on a daily basis. Finn brightens up every classroom that she's a part of. On the topic of collaboration, though, Finn is super bright and is willing to help tutor, give notes, assist. There's a version of our school where Finley is one of our TAs as far as keeping students on track and helping them also be successful. And so for that, Finley is Finley's Student of the Month for collaboration.
Good evening. I've got the pleasure of recognizing Jacob Nickel tonight. He's a senior at Ozark High School. He is also one of our inaugural teaching Pathways to Teaching apprentices. So he's currently collaborating with Miss Cope, teaching algebra at the junior high several days a week down there. In addition to that, his teachers say that Jacob is an exemplar collaborator. He works well in any grouping, asks great questions, keeps his teammates on task, and takes the lead when he senses his team may be stalling. So I've got the pleasure of recognizing Jacob Nickel.
Good evening. So sorry to throw everything out of order tonight. We were stalling a little bit in hopes that Mr. Ferguson would make it, but he had a parent-teacher conference run a little bit late. So I'm going to introduce Miss Berkeley Allen, our Student of the Month for Ozark Middle School. And she has been recognized for being collaborative because she is one of those kiddos that absolutely everyone in the classroom wants to work with and collaborate with. She's one of those kiddos that just draws everyone in. And when she smiles, there it is. It lights up the room. Everybody just wants to gravitate toward her. She's one of those kiddos that goes out of her way to make sure others are included and are a part of the lesson. And she goes out of her way to make sure everyone feels like they're a part of the group and activity. So for that, Miss Berkeley was nominated for our Student of the Month.
Point of order, Mr. President. I would just like to ask about the agenda being changed. I know I asked you privately just a minute ago, and you said the patron discussion had been moved to the end because you thought maybe we might be able to answer some of their questions. But I would like to argue, number one, the agenda was already posted and approved to go in the order that it was. But number two, that public discussion is important. It's not that somebody might have a question that we could answer, but they might have something they want to tell us before we deliberate. They might have something that would encourage us to think about a new perspective. And also, part of it being at the beginning is because it's public, when all the parents and kids are here also, the people in the community they deserve to be able to hear that kind of discussion. And I would ask that we don't move it again, or else we vote if we're gonna move it.
I appreciate your opinion. Reports. Superintendent update.
There we go, making sure that's green. I just wanted to say that I had the honor and the privilege of attending the MSBA conference last week, and it was a wonderful time of collaborating with the board members that were there, as well as collaborating with other superintendents and from other schools. You know, you always learn a lot when you talk to your peers and collaborate. But I would say the sessions that I focused on were based on strategic planning and how to maximize your budget with strategic planning. And so I just wanted to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to attend these types of conferences, because it really does help us grow as individuals and help us grow as a district. So thank you.
All right, anything to add under district reports? Future dates. We do have, our next board meeting is scheduled for November 21st. And then our December board meeting is scheduled for December 19th. We've got several other future dates out there, but those are the two highlights for public events.
Is the meet and greet still on November 14th?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So meet and greet at the, is it here at the OIC?
I had that in my calendar wrong, so thank you for clarifying.
November 14th from 6 to 7. Not a town. All right, next up is our consent agenda. Items listed within the consent agenda. Need a motion to approve of the consent agenda as approved or as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Looks like we have a unanimous approval. Next is moving on to new business.
I would like to start and kind of ask, the first thing on the list is the MSBA policies, first read. I have went through all of these. I don't know if we want to look through them individually and talk about them now. I know it's a new business, we don't have to vote, or do we want to talk about it later? But I know that some of the content needs to be changed based on some of the needs, but I don't think that everything that's presented needs to be changed. So I don't know if we want to individually go through these, or do we want to submit what our thoughts are? Well, how do you want to go through this?
I agree about doing them individually, definitely.
Okay. Is everybody else ready to do that?
Do you think we should try to go through all of them tonight, or should we?
I mean, I could, but I lacked policy, so I've read them all and have notes on all of them.
Right, I have notes on them too.
Is everybody else ready for that?
Mhm.
Or do you want to, I mean, it's not just me and Christina.
It's a lot of them. I would say that there's, as a first read, there's obviously some things in there. I'd say all of us are looking at some of the way they're written. And could we make those suggestions to Lori, have them corrected, have a second read, and then go through them individually? That might speed the process up.
Point of order, those need to be discussed publicly. I'm sorry. Those
Well, they would
objections
be.
need to be
They would be.
discussed publicly. So there's a lot of them to discuss, so maybe we could discuss half of them here and half of them next month or something. I mean, I don't know. This board meeting is nice and short, so we have more time tonight than next month, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we could spend hours looking at each one, but I think I mean, with Christina, we could bring up individual points as opposed to going line by line for every single one. Just bring up individual points that you'd
Yeah,
suggest, and
that's
then we
I
could
don't have a
go.
problem with all of them, but I do with some of them.
That's, I mean, because
Yeah,
I mean, I could talk for hours about each one of these, but.
I
but,
just have, I just have some comments about the the
absolutely.
proposed changes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'd like
on
to
each
go
one
through
of
them
them.
individually. I mean, I think we could. Want to just do
Pretty quickly.
half?
Yeah.
Or-
You
Let's,
want
why
to?
don't we do half and see how fast we go?
Good.
Okay. Okay. All right, want to just go through the way that she presented them. First one being the drug-free workplace.
I didn't have any comments on that one, except for just that, to mention that they mentioned the schedule, the drugs schedules. Ritalin is one of those in Schedule 4, so I guess it doesn't matter at all, though, because the nurse would be handling those, it'd be a prescription for that,
Yeah,
right?
and you'd
So-
have to have a prescription, but I think you leave it on there in case it's at school without a prescription.
Hmm.
Um, I'm fine with that one too. The next one is employee alcohol and drug testing. I did have comments on this. If anybody else did?
I have just one, two, I have two small ones.
My first one is you're removing all training for staff that supervisors and then you, it says the superintendent or designee will secure training, but you're taking away anybody who has supervisor duties. I wanted to clarify on that. And then on the treatment, you have refused to take a test, but before, if they refuse to take a test, it's considered a positive. And then at the end, you took out employees shall sign statements certifying that they have received the material. Those are my questions, and that's just an HR side. I could have emailed them to you, but I thought we should probably talk through them. You can tell me I missed it where it's addressed someplace else, because there were a lot. But those were my first thoughts.
Can you send us those? And what we also, we can also go back on. Your thoughts on this, and then we can address them, we can bring it back to those questions back to you guys at the next meeting.
I just want it to fully be enforceable, and those were my concerns on that one.
It seems like there's some ambiguity about the marijuana procedures.
That's purposeful.
It's hard to, it says it's prohibited, but then again, there's some other lines about it being legal in the state, and so I don't know how you test for, how do you?
It's a problem because it's still prohibited federally.
Right.
But it's legalized with the state, and it creates a lot of mixed signals.
Right.
But they can't use it at work. They don't, and we don't recognize it being a medical purpose. If they test positive, it's not going to, the MOR is not going to consider that a pass. It's still going to be a fail. But that's a hard one. I mean, that's a hard one in general because of how the state is not aligned with the federal. But we still can say that they are not to use it.
We kind of have to say, because we receive federal funds, it's prohibited on campus, on district
I know,
property,
but just
right?
the state made it hard
Right,
by what they did.
Right.
Because people don't understand that
Right.
it's still, it's a hard one.
I
but
like it that
is.
they're clarifying that in the
I do.
policy.
Could you
I
do
think
me a
that's
favor and
important.
repeat the three things? The three items that you mentioned?
that you're taking away, you explain who's taking the training by saying it's all staff who have supervisor duties. You're taking that away and it says now the superintendent or designee will
Okay.
secure training. That just,
Right.
are they required to still do it or is it just, that's my question there.
All right.
And then on the consequences, you're considering refusing to take one as a positive, but in treatment, you're saying that it's one of the reasons you can get treatment is refusal of the test.
So it's,
That doesn't,
make sense, does it?
right.
Okay.
And then the last sentence is employees shall sign statements certifying that they have received the materials. My fear if you don't do that is I have to make everybody at county sign. So
Yeah,
you might want to double check that.
Sure will.
that it's somewhere,
Um,
that it's listed somewhere. like
Well,
that,
I think
yeah.
you could probably get by with saying that they signed the manual, but I still think that you should go the extra step because.
And I think that's
of
what
the-
we were thinking, though, they signed the manual.
You can, but that's probably up for a conversation. It was stuck out to me.
Sure. Okay.
That's
The one other thing I'd say in this one, it's kind of in this one and several others, we've got he and she and switching it to there. I don't really see a point. The grammar's the same.
Where's it at on that one? I had it
It's under
highlighted.
district records and reports and the last paragraph on provisions applicable to
It's-
drivers.
Yeah, so I think it's in almost all these.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Grammar hasn't changed, so it's.
That
I
sentence,
would-
that actually doesn't need to be changed, you're correct, because there's no changing the content to that.
There's no changing of content in either one of those
Yep.
at all, and I'm opposed to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that when you're changing the content and you want to make it flow correctly by a new, but this is nothing new and there should be no reason to change it.
I think it's more powerful to be speaking to the individual. A student who does this or that is much more impactful than students who do this, some vague group of things. And I can't think of any reason to make that change except for to give some kind of collusion or some kind of promotion even to agendas that don't fit Ozark for sure.
Well, I want to make sure that they didn't change the grammar to run through it like that because those parts shouldn't change.
They did, last year, we opposed it and defeated
Yeah.
it because it wasn't grammatically correct. But so they fixed it this year so that the numbers
Oh,
matched.
kind of
But there's
interesting.
no reason to make that change that I can think of except for to give a nod to
I
things
agree.
that don't fit Ozark, to
I don't-
transgenderism
I
and
think
other
that
things
they're
that don't
making
fit.
blanket, but I agree those things don't need to be changed. There's no other content change to it.
Appears to be a blanket thing for one of these documents where they've changed this, his and hers to they or their. I don't know that any of it's really called for, so.
But they did change the sentence.
Yeah.
I just think that on some of these, they just grabbed it and changed it where it
Yeah, it
wasn't,
was a
it's not
mass edit.
applicable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have to listen to MSB on all of that.
No, we can do what we want to do. One of the questions I have, and I think you may have just said this and would not approve of what I'm saying. Have we thought about, instead of using pronouns, his, her, them, their, however that is, and just going to students? Students do this, students do that, and that's it. Or employees do this, not, and then you would still change the sentences, but you're not quibbling over the other issues.
I think it
And most
needs
of-
to stay,
I was gonna say, in most of these sentences, it looks like the sentence was changed in order to remove the his and her. There's no real content grammatical reason to do it. There was no, okay, we'll change it to students so that we can say there or whatever it is. So it's. there was no
I'd say if
real-
there's any way to keep the his and her in there, rather than changing it to.
Oh, absolutely.
leave it the way it was.
Try to go, stay away
Yes.
from using pronouns of any.
Yes.
Yeah, there was
When-
no substantive addition that would require that. It was actually changes in order to facilitate that, in my mind.
Could we just ask them, because anywhere that went into his and her and changed it, can they
Yes,
revert
we
back
can,
to original?
100% we can do that.
Takes care of it.
I think that last year when we had this conversation, we did mention grammatically, if it made sense. And so when we're reading through those, we're reading grammar only. We're not really thinking of anything else, but does this sentence make sense to us? And so when we're looking at grammar,
that's what we were looking for.
And on some of these, when they're changing the policy and it's rewritten completely, like it's a whole new theme, I'm not going to quibble over statements like that, but when they're changing them just for, that's not necessary.
So
We don't need to do that.
So that I understand and that we understand. And sometimes it takes me a little bit. On this policy, give me the example of what should remain the same when you're talking about.
The first paragraph under district records and reports and the
And then
very
under
last paragraph.
Consequences.
Well, all right, say that again. I apologize.
The first paragraph under
Uh-huh.
district records and reports. This is policy.
It was in that policy.
If you just search for his and her, or
No,
you'll
no,
find-
we're going
no.
through each policy individually because sometimes they change things that didn't have his or her, like the last
No.
paragraph.
Okay,
I
district
thought we were
records.
looking at this one.
Okay.
And then in consequences.
And there, instead of her, there.
The whole sentence could, the whole paragraph could stay the same. Upon written request, second sentence, upon written request, an employee shall receive copies of, I mean, it should stay the same, the whole paragraph.
Oh, that one
The
I
same
think
with
is
the
in
last
there. I
paragraph.
didn't have a problem with that
The
one,
last
actually.
paragraph under provisions applicable to drivers. As required by law, no driver shall report, I mean, leave it singular. There are articles out where leftist groups have talked about the use of gender inclusive pronouns in order to affirm and promote things that we don't want to promote in Ozark. And I will not be able to support that, even if there's no specific or explicit promotion of any kind of strange pronoun, except for just they or their, not strange, but new. But we need to just leave it the way it is because there's no reason to change it.
I think first and foremost, we're an education institution and the only changes that should be made are due to content or for grammar.
Yes.
I don't think there should be a stand either other way. We need to fall back on what is correct, the way to write it. And if it's a run-on sentence because of the way we worded it, then let's look at that. I don't think there's any other reason behind it. But I do think that they went through and purposely did this and it doesn't always need to be changed.
Yeah.
Amber, I agree with you. It looks like they went through and purposely did that.
But I have to say on some, I think they fixed a run-on sentence. I mean, I do. I think that some of
There
them
were
were too
some
long.
that
So I
needed
think that's why
fixed.
you have to look at all.
That's true.
Okay, what's next?
GBEBC. Is that the next one you had? to
Criminal
add?
background checks.
Well, that's why I couldn't find it. 'Cause I was on there. Do you guys, you want me to jump
Go
in?
ahead.
want to talk?
You can do it.
I'm
with
sorry.
you.
I like policy. On drivers, it says the district may allow the bus drivers to operate district transportation pending the results of a criminal background. Do you want to add to that without students present? Or are they writing it with, are they around students before they have a background done? That would be fine with me, but with that, you want to add that to
So
the
we should
sentence
put that
then?
in there, huh? Good catch, Amber.
Under ongoing background checks, is that removal no longer a requirement?
It's under drivers. Is that what you're looking at? What
On
I s-
the
Change, it's just something she caught.
it says continued participation in the program would require fingerprints every 6 years. Is that, so we remove that? Is that no longer a state or requirement? Okay.
Was that all of yours, Amber? I have one on the last
Do you
paragraph.
want me to keep going? Do you want me to email some of these to you?
No.
I can email them to you.
If you, at least if, I mean, if you will say them out loud and then, because we can't write them all down, but we will go back and we'll watch the video. And then you guys can have discussion and we will pull them off of the video, the things that need to be changed. Or to come back the next time with the answers to some of these questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking drug testing, the last one, it could be pending a drug test result.
Okay, I just, when you're reading that, you're like, I don't think so. Okay.
I wanted to say the same thing happened in the very last paragraph. No, sorry, next to last, under consequences. I don't think we need to make any of those changes there. Here, Natalie, do we have any more mics? I don't know if we have this one.
I didn't catch that one either, because I did catch some of these, but I'm wondering if, I think you should read the sentence. Yeah, I don't think it's needed.
We could just go back and just leave it. Not a problem.
If you want to change any to "and," that's violent or harmful to children or adults and may terminate an employee or exclude an applicant if the background, if that helps it better. Reveals behavior that would make him or her unsuitable for the position in the discretion of the superintendent designee.
You'd have to change the whole sentence because I do think it didn't sound right before, and I don't, so.
Did you have a suggested wording?
I didn't, I just didn't like it.
Oh.
Sorry. I got.
And it doesn't, I mean, we can go through these and then bring them back to you next time. And if you're still not happy and still we need to adjust something, we'll do it again.
I have nothing on student records.
Anybody else have anything on student records?
Wait, let me look. The next one? No, I didn't have anything on there either.
I didn't have anything on tuition.
I have, nope, nothing on tuition.
I didn't have any content change on that. I didn't have any content change on.
Is the student record that addition, the district will permanently maintain IEPs? Is that a new requirement? Okay.
Is it a new requirement? We have to maintain IEP. I think the length of the IEP, how long we have to, is now forever and a day.
Okay.
Oh, that's.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have anything on eligibility to enroll.
You don't have anything, anybody else have anything on eligibility to enroll? Sorry, I'm.
Which
I'm
one?
just trying to hear.
Eligibility to enroll,
No.
school admissions.
I do.
have some on there.
I think there is some unnecessary changes under, so they changed it all the way through.
Okay.
And I would fix that.
We can fix it.
Reverse it and
Yep.
see how it works.
Because really
Just put it
there's no
back how it
other
was.
content change to that.
Right. Right.
That's what they added.
I was gonna say
I saw
something
that.
about that section.
But all of that before is not necessary. Yeah.
Now that listening to you, it gives, I appreciate this because it gives us guidance on what the expectations are. And so that we can bring them to you in a manner that you would approve. Okay.
I don't have any.
I wanted to say something
Oh, I'm
about the
sorry.
last one. That's okay. Adult learner admissions. I know they added that. Was that added? This, you might not know the answer to this, but because the MSBA is the one who proposed these, and I thank you for passing them along to us. I wonder if they added that because it was changed in law? Was it a change in law?
It says
Dr.
it's
Link's
Senate
nodding
Bill
his head.
40, did it?
Okay. What's that? Senate Bill 40? Okay.
Yeah, it says at the beginning.
It's, so, yeah, I better see, no, that was, I guess that was the only change, huh? So so that one, there's not like an original that had he or she that they changed to there. But I would like to put these back into the singular, again, because number one, well, number two, the secondary reason, because it's not as effective when you address a group of vague generalized people versus one person, if you're trying to set a guideline. But number one, mostly because we don't want to give any credence or promotion to that idea that we need to use different pronouns all of a sudden, as if he or she is not sufficient. So like I would reword that second paragraph that says in accordance with law, I would say an individual must undergo a qualifying criminal history background check. And then the 1 and 2, the criteria, I would say he or she is 18 years, there needs to be 8 years in there, or older, and not counted by the, and number 2, I would say he or she is requesting to enroll in a course. And the same with the last paragraph, instead of individuals, I would say an individual. And then in the next sentence, I would say an adult student cannot be admitted to these courses if he or she has been convicted. There's no reason for those to be plural.
On that,
Some of these are just gonna read better. I mean, they are. And I 100% believe that you should not change content change those for no reason, but some of them are because they read better.
Do you think it reads better in this section?
For where?
Those stuff that I was just saying, that last, the added part, adult learner admissions.
on that entrance ages on page 2,
Oh, I wasn't there.
it talks about.
Wait,
I wasn't there.
wait, I wanted to hear what Amber
No,
was
I was in
gonna
the
say
wrong
about.
place. I was in the wrong place.
Oh, okay.
Under that part 2, I'm not sure if this is applicable, or it says to a kindergarten school term in the St. Louis City School District or the Kansas City, does that actually apply to us, or?
Where is that?
Which one is this?
Oh, yeah.
Entrance ages.
Right there, number 2, right there.
Entrance
Doesn't
ages.
apply, but was this R1? If you scroll up to see what the number, JEC 1, page 12 district. I'm trying to think, there was one of them that came out that was if you were in St. Louis and if you weren't in St. Louis. So we may have, I may have given you the wrong one, I thought I'd put the right one in, but we'll double check that. No, because
That makes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's applicable to us. Yeah.
If a student has attended school already.
Wait.
in
Yeah.
St. Louis or Kansas City, then we would accept them based on that. We wouldn't accept a kid, I believe it's the one under 5, right?
Dr.
Not
Carson,
not
if you're
from
not talking
Springfield,
into
not
the
from
mic, the
Springfield, though.
video's not getting you.
What?
But not from Springfield.
No, it says Kansas City or St. Louis.
But they might have moved here after that.
Kansas City schools and St. Louis schools are different than, they're in different systems.
Because they're run by the state. They lost their accreditation.
Okay.
So I have no changes in the next term.
so I need
I
to,
have no changes in the next term.
I need to go back
Ceremonies and
And-
observances.
I don't have any.
Do you have anything?
Wait,
What's up?
Lori's saying something.
what you were saying.
On the last section.
I need to have guidance on that, please.
I was in the wrong place.
If you can change that to, from they, and any place where it's applicable to put he and she in the adult learner section.
It's probably also important to note that you're changing everything above, before it, so it should flow to meet.
And leave it
Grammar
in
should
this,
match.
leave it in the singular instead of saying individuals requesting enrollment, make it say an individual.
So as we are working and going through these policies, because we have more that we will be giving you, I want to make sure that I understand that we will work with her, and put it in singular form, but also if there is a section in there that has been changed to they or them, that's such as this, it's a new section, you want that changed back to the singular form.
If applicable, yeah.
Yeah.
To match it.
If it
Rewrite
makes
it.
sense to, for it to be there, yeah.
But I mean, I do get the fact, like where it says preschool and pre-kindergarten entrance ages, that to me was not offensive because I thought it was better. Like there are times where it is, but I do think that if we're deciding as a whole to leave it at that, as that, the correct proper English would be to make it all match.
Okay. I can do that. We can work on it.
I don't have anything on ceremonies, or I didn't have any problem with student and alcohol use either.
So that was school admissions that we just.
I mean, I do have a lot
we
of
just spoke
problem with
of.
student alcohol.
So there's changes.
I had one question
Sorry.
on that student alcohol, not a, let's change this, but just one suggestion.
Which one are you on? I'm sorry.
I'm on the JFCH, student alcohol and drug use.
And did we say that ceremonies and observances was okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to railroad over, like Amber and I are saying, yep, we're done.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
Sarah might have had something to say.
They're just trying to catch up with you.
Sorry. Okay, so JFCH. On page, well, you don't have pages. Under prohibited substances, the first section marijuana. See the first sentence, because marijuana and marijuana infused products are prohibited under federal law. There where it says the district does not permit, I just wondered if we might take that out and then just finish the sentence with their possession, use, or administration for medicinal or other purposes on district property or at district events is not permitted or is prohibited or something like that, because
I think they're making a point of saying we're not going to accept a medical marijuana card too. I think that that's
yeah,
important. to
I know
add,
that's the point, and I agree with that totally.
because you have to, because otherwise people are going to go, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't. have it."
Right, but if we say, instead, I'm not saying remove it entirely, the district does not, I'm just saying put it in at the, more at the end, is not permitted. Because they might be like, well, I don't care what the district said,
not
you know,
permitted.
is
I
not
don't have a
permitted,
problem
is
with that
stronger,
sentence.
or is prohibited. Okay, I just thought I would toss that out. That's fine.
So JFCH is okay.
And the bottom, oh, no, it's not the bottom for you guys, sorry, under consequences.
Okay.
The second paragraph under consequences has the same problem of not flowing grammatically and seeming to give some promotion and endorsement. The
What?
board encourages the superintendent or designee to consider alternative discipline for any student who is willing to seek treatment or counseling option.
What was your question about that? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it says for students who are willing, and
think
so I
either
recommend changing it for any student who is willing, because that's individual and that's, they can say, that applies to me. That's an
I
option for
think the
me.
sentence is the same either way you read it.
It may be the same, but like we were saying earlier, we want them all to flow.
I don't think that that's, for me, that's not a flowing
Okay.
part.
What do you think, James?
In the, under the influence paragraph, we could probably tell if you're under the influence, but how do I know in this paragraph if someone's under the influence? How can I prove that? So it says, under the influence by this, so I mean, a kid could be under the influence from Tylenol, coming in and looking like he's whacked out, right? Because he's something. Maybe removed from and disciplined, depending on the circumstances. So how do we know? How do we test that? May conduct student testing in accordance with the policy. So what?
From that policy, when they went back and
Right.
talked about that testing, they're going to have to go through reasonable suspension testing.
I think the first couple words where it says if there's evidence.
Yeah.
You know, where it says if there's evidence, I think that's where it's talking about, you know, where there's gonna be evidence is where that's falling back to, in my opinion, when I, you know, I mean, there's so many different types of evidence. It can be from, I don't know, that's not my world to know all the,
Right.
yeah.
So what was your question again?
I just feel like it's kind of vague. It's how do you?
How do you know if
how
someone's
do
under
you-
the influence?
How do you know if they're under the influence or hadn't slept,
Or what? I'm sorry.
have not slept? Because
Thank you. I want to.
you can actually, that's actually. you can
Gerald
actually-
here, but I think there's numerous ways that you'd have to basically have to have conversations
Yeah.
with the child, and if they're acting very differently than what they have in the past. And you just have to investigate it.
That goes back to that training on reasonable
Yep.
suspicion too. Staff would have to take
Uh,
that
it's a-
training.
a reasonable suspicion.
And for criminal, true.
At sometimes, and nurses.
And nurses,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Does that happen?
Mhm.
Well, maybe.
That was good. Did
Yeah.
you hear what
the-
Sarah said? She said, does it ever happen that the
yeah.
parents
Maybe it
call
does.
and say there may be a problem? with
It's
them?
looking for the school to help, yeah.
That was good.
We got to the last page. You want to keep going?
Yep. Got like 5 left.
Yeah, let's
Oh,
go.
wow. Okay.
Okay. On searches of students, under searches of students, you have changed his or her, which is unnecessary because it doesn't change it anywhere else.
I agree with that. I also wanted to say something, just maybe there's something else in another policy that I'm not aware of, but I noticed in the first paragraph there of searches of student property, it's the only paragraph of searches of student property. And then later on down when it's talking about student drug and alcohol testing, there's no mention of parents being present. And I know there's something about the school being in loco parentis and all that kinds of things, but our parents deserve to know and kind of be present. I think if their students are being searched or disciplined with something like drug offenses, that's a thing that has caused a lot of problem in the past with different parents being shut out of those kinds of talkings with their students. So I don't know if we need to talk about that more later, or if we want to say something about when possible the parents will be invited to attend, I don't know what we want to say. But there's no notice of any parental notice or consent or presence.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean,
Paragraph right above drug detection dogs, talking about strip search.
Mhm.
I don't understand why that, we said we were gonna look at that anyway, but it does talk about who will notify student parents regarding as soon as possible.
Yeah.
For the purpose of that section, we typically contact the parents in the process. If you are searching a person, you don't stop what you're doing to wait till a parent gets there. Because you're in the middle of, and typically they have it at 2:15, and school's out at 2:45, and you've got a 30-minute window to give, to take care of something. So we don't typically stop a search or stop our work to contact the parent to wait till they get there. And that wouldn't be a typical thing that we would do. We would go ahead and proceed. We would contact the parents very shortly.
Maybe that needs
So-
to be a conversation we
Yeah.
have. I want to hear what James was
Yeah,
going
no,
to
to
say.
me, I 100% agree. Think about your own child. And I get the extreme cases where there's potential weapons or something involved. Yeah, maybe that's an outlier. But generally speaking, I would prefer, and we can discuss this as a second read or whatever, how that goes is, parents to the max extent possible, or parents shall be notified, or parents, should be in the room or get parental consent prior to searching, prior to strip searching, if that's even an option. I would remove that. And prior to drug testing, because, we taught our children to, listen to administrators and teachers, and that's good. But we also want to protect them against the person who hasn't been trained, right? So, right, so we can take them in a room and put them in the administrator room until they
That's
get
good,
there.
James. Yeah.
So,
School's out at 2:45 and we've got an issue and you've got to wait. What's the process in which, the delay to get to a parent, to get the student home, to, I 100% understand what you're saying. And I get what they're saying too. There's a no-win situation here, right? In a manner of speaking.
It's often that when a student comes in and they've got, you need to look through a bag, you say, empty your backpack.
Yeah.
If I'm going to call a parent every time and say, I'm about to have your student empty their backpack, you just added on multiple layers of wait and see. And I don't believe that it would be very good as far as our process is concerned.
Right.
Now, we always talk to the parent after that or in the process of, but I don't know, with all respect, the people who are doing that have all been trained. And often an SRO is in the process. We don't have people search that haven't been trained.
Right.
That's what an
And
administrator
if
does.
the SROs are police officers, so if they have probable cause, they can search, because of court cases or precedent.
Dr. Carson, is that pretty frequent occurrence that you have to search somebody's backpack or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Do that
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has to, I mean, take all the basics. Right. I'm gonna say, hey, empty your pockets.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask them to take off their clothes, I'm asking them to do their pockets, and that would be
Yes, we definitely want, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get all that, and I get inconvenience is one thing, but we are talking about children too. I mean,
That's right.
I mean, I totally get, we're trying to time management, all that stuff, but at the same time, we also gotta protect children. Because, I mean, it's one thing about, well, it's gonna cause us time and all that stuff, but we're here to protect them first off. So, I don't.
That's good.
And we can talk about this in the second read and stuff. Maybe there's a way to work that out. But to me, and if we're talking about, I think this is under the discipline part, if it's a piece that can go to a law enforcement level, which is nearly every potential issue. I mean, if a kid calls their kid a name, that's assault. So that could be referred to law enforcement potentially, right? That would mean that they have not been, their rights, I don't know. Seems like they should have the right not to do that. Which, and also having the parent there, I don't know where the Miranda piece goes into it and telling them, hey, you don't have to self-incriminate yourself. That is a right too. Maybe that's wrong with the second read. So
No, that's good, James. Kids are impressionable. That's the same reason employees can't wear political shirts, because kids are impressionable and they look up to their authority figures. They need to have some kind of representation, and that's their parents.
And to the drug and alcohol testing piece, I would add, have parental consent or approval or be there too. Because again, most of our children here are just gonna, okay, go and do the test, but should they?
So with the second read, what we can do is we can come back and tell you the processes that we use and give you more explanation on how we handle these items. That'd be okay?
Yeah.
Visitors to district property and events.
Oh, wait. Did we do student discipline already? Am I out of order? Oh, I did. Oh, I saw the note. This is on student discipline. I saw the note that it's recommended to take out that statement on AI. Did you see there's a lawsuit just last week, I think, because a student got in trouble for misusing the AI thing and it wasn't a written policy or anything like that? I think it's a good thing to include. I know we're working on how we're going to shape that, but we might want to include it right now because all it says is unauthorized use of generative artificial intelligence, which is kind of included under unauthorized collaboration, right? You collaborated with the AI thing, but I think it's worth it to leave it in there, at least for now, and we can change it later once we get developed exactly what we want to say.
They added it.
They
Right,
added
but
it.
on the district's recommendations, they recommended subtracting that statement out about the AI. I think we should just.
Because
leave
we're
it in.
developing a policy now, and we
Yeah.
wanted to be able to come back to you with the policy and not change this one also, but we can add that, that's not a problem, and then come back with a different policy on it.
I think so.
This spring? Yeah. Yeah.
I guess the only thing, Christina, would be if we have this and then what defines unauthorized use?
Well,
We don't have
they
that
talked
yet.
about that. They talked about that at the beginning, just a little bit with the
Yeah.
definitions of unauthorized use. But that'd be something our district would flesh out on the very beginning underneath where they have an explanation. They gave some definitions for generative AI and
Go back up, please.
unauthorized use of
Right there.
AI on that first page right there. Yeah. See the last paragraph on that page kind of defines it. But they leave it vague so we can each district can make
Yeah.
it what we want it to be. But I think for now, we should leave it in there.
We're gonna have I mean, if they're thinking December or January for a policy at that point, that's a lot of add now and then change. And, if we're
She said spring.
Yeah, if we come to you in January, I mean, it could be as soon as January, but it could be this spring. We're having multiple meetings.
I don't know that it's a huge problem right now. I'm guarantee you that every student is using it at some point and we don't know about it. But a lot of our things are locked down, or a lot of our programs where they can get to it at school, they cannot get there. We want to have a policy that supports the students and the teachers. And we just haven't worked through that yet.
For them mostly to get to an hour.
Or at home, yes. For the most part, no, is that not true? Right.
While at school.
So they might bring their own laptop to school.
Gotcha.
Great.
Are those,
And our teachers are becoming well-versed in, looking to see what the differences are. But we're just working through that as every school is.
I didn't mean to cut off Dustin. I couldn't hear him very well, sorry. I was just gonna ask if those filters are foolproof. So I have, are we done on the AI thing? I have one more thing on that policy. Were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna reiterate the thing we mentioned with the searches, the same type of thing in here. I don't know the right verbiage, but something about, if students are reporting to law enforcement, that type of crime, if they're suspected of that or are going to be interviewed by someone, to me, I would think they should have a parent or someone, which I believe there might be a Missouri statute that relates to that. So if we can explore that for the next version.
And which one was that? That was still the student discipline?
Yeah, somewhere
It's
in
the
there.
last paragraph under reporting to law enforcement. Good catch, James. Then I have one more question on that one.
Okay.
It's near the end, under the drug and alcohol, number 1. It's like, oh, no, I was wrong. It's not near the end. My apologies. Near the end of this page, I'm sorry. Drug and alcohol is big one, big heading. Oh, good, thanks. No, then number 1, it says possession, sale, purchase, transfer, manufacture, or distribution of any over-the-counter drug, herbal preparation, or imitation drug or herbal preparation. So that reminds me of, in high school, I carried around a thing of Advil, and my friends did, my girlfriends did, and sometimes we were like, hey, give me an Advil, like that, or even essential oils. Nowadays, kids carry around essential oils, some of them, and I mean, are those kinds of things prohibited also?
Yes.
Should they be? Will you help me understand why?
They can hide other things in it, so they just put it. I've had to drive up to the school. to
No,
get
I
my
can't hear
child.
you very well. I'm sorry, Amber. Will you?
So, yes, I think that if you start to let them to come in, they're going to, kids are, I think they're going to hide. Yes, they're going to be creative, and their ibuprofen bottle may not be ibuprofen, but it says ibuprofen. What is you going to, I think that it is, and it isn't. I know, because I've driven to the school to give my child ibuprofen, or I have called the nurse to approve an Excedrin. But I do think that it's still better than allowing people to speak in other things.
So they just could take it to the nurse when they get there that morning and say, here's my
I'd
this,
give
I'm gonna
Excedrin
come
to the
get it
nurse.
at lunch or whatever.
Absolutely.
So there is
Do-
I think it's the medication policy. It's kind of ambiguous as far as that goes. It seems a little strange to me that first it says it's prohibited, but then if you're allowed to have it, your parents give you a note. So there's all these little caveats.
You just can't have it on you.
I don't know. So I mean, if I write a note that your daughter can have
It's
it for
not-
2 weeks, next
it's
2
not.
weeks, you're good.
But you have to have a doctor's note. Like our
Right.
pediatrician had to write it.
Right.
It's not a parent's note. It has to be
Yeah.
treating something.
And what's the procedure on that? They give it to the nurse, they give the notes to the nurse or whatever? Okay, thanks. I just wondered about that one. I don't think I had anything else on that.
Okay. What do you have next?
Policy KK. Are we on that one?
Sure. Policy KK.
Visitors to district property and events. This one actually is near the end. The last paragraph that I wanted to mention, other people might have others, but under enforcement, they did the same thing with the his or her.
Okay. But the sentence before it where they did it, I like it because it makes it sterner. Because the superintendent or designee, and I like that they say may prohibit the visitor from
where is
district
that?
property at district, I mean, like, or district events.
Oh, thank you. What?
It's a stronger sentence without it, so.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't arguing about that one. I'm not arguing. I wasn't mentioning that one. I agree with that. But the bottom one under enforcement, the first sentence, if a visitor is
But if I'm
prohibited.
going to be a stickler about being grammatically correct, I don't think that this is an example of what you're referring to because we're talking of making this stern. We are prohibiting their presence. We are prohibiting those visitors' presence
That's under disruptive conduct, right?
and enforcement. It's together.
Yeah, the enforcement to that point is from the district property instead of district ground. It's
I
again,
think it
makes it a
makes-
stronger
yeah.
sentence. It
I don't
does.
think it's one of the examples where MSBA is trying to push off there. I think it's just making the sentence stronger. And I agree with that.
Not to argue, but I would say that it is because it says if a visitor prohibited from district property or events under this policy is on district property. If the very first of the sentence starts out singular, if a visitor prohibited from district property or events, then district staff will contact law enforcement, and inform him or her, or the person is fine. But of the district policy prohibiting his or her presence. That one actually is not even grammatically correct.
If a visitor's conduct becomes disruptive,
Oh, I'm on the next section under enforcement.
oh.
If a visitor prohibited from district property or events under this policy is on district property, then district staff will and inform the person or him or her of the district policy prohibiting his or her presence.
A visitor. You know what? Maybe you should have an English teacher write it down, 'cause I don't know.
Well,
So on the
don't you
enforcement
think that
paragraph-
one's a visitor?
Can we look at grammar on that one? Just try to clean that one up.
Yeah.
I like that
Property
you
is
changed,
better.
I think it made it stronger for me.
Yeah, me too. I think prohibited and property is stronger, but not the them.
Okay.
Administration of medication of students, do we want to go into this one?
Yeah. Administration of medications to students.
The last pair or underneath, student possession and self-administration of medications underneath two, they do change. They do his or her. I think it's unnecessary, but I don't have a problem with this policy.
I just wonder, why did they remove that? There
that
might be a
addressed in
great
another
reason,
policy
but I
somewhere?
don't know
Where is
why
that
it's
at again? I'm
removed.
sorry.
It's under student possession and self-administration of medications. Majority of that section is striked.
And like that, I kind of think that they talk about administering insulin and they took all of those things out.
Items 1 and 2 are all stricken.
I would think it would be reworded in another section.
It is. You don't need to put it in, yeah.
Instead of all that detailed.
And they changed it at the end to match the first paragraph in the beginning where they're making students plural, and that's why they changed it. But I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessary to change that plural, you're right.
Last paragraph.
Last
But
one.
so,
I have
wait,
nothing with
wait,
the last one.
is it in some other section that they get to self-administer their insulin or that, I mean, is that one of those things also that's at the nurse? That's at the nurse
They
too.
can self-administer their insulin.
It's in their IEPs.
Yeah.
So anybody who
IEP
has
plan, yeah.
insulin problems has an IEP
504.
or a 504? Okay.
Which is why you shouldn't have it in there.
Okay.
And then I have.
Christine, on the thing you mentioned earlier, the example of the Advil, I think it's under over-the-counter medications. District may administer over-the-counter medications to a student if they've received permission to do so from the parent or guardian for 2 weeks.
Right.
For
But
short
you just
term.
can't carry it around with you.
For short term.
Yeah.
For long term, I think you have to, I've had to have pediatricians submit for long term.
Hmm.
Because I've had to have it waxed. I have no problems with the last one.
BDC.
Okay, oops, sorry. Oh, I do. Under objection, it's the same thing, and I've got some suggested wording if you want to hear it, but it seems like there was no substantive change to that paragraph, and all they did was change it to make it plural instead of singular the whole way through. I think instead of saying board members who believe that, it could be if a board member believes that. And so
That's not.
if you want me to, I can tell you the rest of my suggested wording is very simple, except for just not going along with their plural that they put in and leaving it singular.
I didn't have a problem. I thought it read well.
It's just,
I thought it read well.
it just seems less specific when you make it a vague general group versus an individual, because an individual might not be part of a group. But if you say an individual student this, or an individual employee that, or an individual board member this, that makes it more applicable, more, I don't know.
I don't necessarily have an objection to how it was written originally, but either way is fine with me. But if
Everything that we see that is in the plural tense, we will go through and we will try to make it singular. And I think for us, guys, that makes it
Good.
for us,
Good.
instead of which one do we do, which one do we not do?
Good.
Because we are in no way, shape or form trying to promote anything.
No, I know. we're not.
100% not.
No, we're
I know
not.
you're not.
And so it gives us guidance on, okay, if the board prefers for it to be in singular, then we will go through and we will do that. And then if we make a mistake or we miss one, you guys can help us catch it and we can adjust.
And like under, oh, Dustin, what'd you say?
Yeah. Dustin wanted to make a motion. Yes.
Good.
We're gonna make a motion.
No, it's just barely been 30 minutes that we started this, or maybe 45. So under confidentiality, they did it again. They changed every employee to all district employees. So that's one of those.
Some of it, I think we just need to, some of it really just needs to read correct English and concise. So I fully believe that when the MSBA went in and made the changes unnecessarily, I don't agree with those, but I don't want to take away your ability to write clear and concise policies too.
That was good, Amber.
Okay, so we will bring back the next time, as much of it in singular form as we can.
That makes sense.
And then we can, things that we that we didn't change, we'll show you what we didn't change. And then we will also bring back some more information on what you're talking about from a student discipline standpoint and the processes and procedures and why we do some of those things.
Okay.
As a side note, I know that I've had discipline where a student had a bottle of, it looked like Advil, and it probably was Advil, but they were also telling everybody this is oxycodone.
Oh, brother.
And then that becomes you treat it just like it was a drug issue because everybody who took it thought it was oxycodone.
Lord.
So that's another reason that we would really not prefer to have the kids have that on them.
But I understand that.
I agree
That's
with
good.
Okay,
That's
so
good.
we will make these changes. I guarantee you, we're gonna miss something and we'll have to look at it and then maybe go back and do it again a little bit in December.
Do a second.
I have one last thing.
The second read.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
Were you done?
I was done.
Oh, okay, I just have one last thing. I move we introduce for first read at the November 21 board meeting an amendment to policy ACA by including the following sentence just above the definitions section. The terms gender and sex have been frequently used interchangeably in society. Therefore, the district clarifies that the intent of either of those words throughout the district's policies and other written documents should be understood to mean physical chromosomal sex. And in every every decision requiring a distinction between the two, the differentiation will be based on physical chromosomal sex. I moved that we add that to first read at the next month meeting, November 21 meeting.
Did you send a copy of that to me ahead of time?
I have a copy of it here I can pass out.
Okay, so you didn't send it out ahead of time?
No, I didn't. I just typed it up tonight.
Okay.
But if we put it on the agenda for next month, November 21st as first read, then there's still time to think about it and process it.
Is there a second? Without a second, your motion dies at this point.
I'd like to speak in favor of my motion if I could, just for a minute. Mr. President, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thanks. The reason we need to do it now, before any court cases or federal expansions of regulations come down, is because then we can say, this is what we have decided for Ozark. I know that we've been told there's a lawsuit in Blue Springs against the Blue Springs School District. That lawsuit is on appeal. There's no way we could be added in as a defendant. And also, the reason that lawsuit came about in the first place is because the district did not have a written policy. Our district has to have a written policy defining what we mean by gender or sex or male or female. And if we just have a one sentence definition added to that Title IX non-discrimination policy, ACA, if we just add one sentence to that defining what we mean is physical chromosomal sex, then that's clear. Now, if it comes down later that some ruling or some regulation from the federal government thinks that we need to change it, then we can discuss then if we want to change it or not. But we need to be clear. If we don't have a written down policy, it's not a policy at all. The students don't know. The teachers don't know how to enforce, what to enforce, who goes into what bathroom, what locker room, what sports team they participate on. If we don't have it written down, it doesn't count.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is transportation.
So this is going to be a presentation. It's going to be Philip and Robert Hedgecorth, because you asked for specific data points. And so we presented the position that transportation was in, and these two have done a fine job, a great job of evaluating the questions that have been presented. So Mr. Wake and myself are here for any questions you would have.
Good evening, board. So many parts of this hit the HR side and also hit the financial side. So we figured there'll be some questions on both sides. So because it's on the microphone on this table, we'll go ahead and both address the microphone. The first thing is the total cost of overtime, and how we calculated the total cost of overtime and what it'd be for all our employees. I want to make sure that that's clear and not just transportation. Is we took the 2 previous years and we looked at all the comp time build up from all our hourly classified employees and what that looked like over the last 2 years. So that doesn't necessarily mean, past results don't necessarily mean what the future will be, but it's probably a good indication of what the total will be. So we also, when comp is built up, we also pay that comp out on a quarterly basis. And so once we move to overtime, we won't be paying that comp out anymore because everything will be overtime. And so some of those costs offset the total, as well as the reason a lot of these drivers are driving over 40 hours a week is because we don't have some of those positions filled. So because we're not paying an employee because that position is unfilled, that also reduces your overall cost of what overtime cost to the district. So that estimation would be for just over $106,000. And please note that that's annually. And so when we would implement overtime procedures for this year, it'll take a little bit of time for our payroll department to get everything switched over. And so the first payroll period that we would start paying out overtime would be that first payroll period in December, and the first check would be in late December. So I wanted to kind of explain how some of those calculations were made, and just happy to take any questions on any of the slides. We have 4 slides, so I'll just stop after each slide and ask if there's any questions. Right, so the second piece of this, I'll go ahead and let Dr. Link discuss.
So with transitioning and potentially adding health insurance for our part-time employees that work at least 25 hours, you can see here what the estimated cost, additional cost would be annually to do that. That's factoring very conservatively, I think overestimating about $674.50 in benefits per employee. That would be your health, life, and your short-term disability. Right now, looking at our current numbers, we have about 57 total part-time employees right now that we would add. However, of those 57, there's probably about 16 that'll likely not take us up on the insurance and the benefits because they're over 65 or they're under 26 and still on their parents' plan. But 2, then you're looking at about 14, 15 part-time bus openings that'll probably look at that. That's why we're hoping to fill those in with that there. So
What did you say at the beginning? I'm sorry to interrupt. You said something was overestimated. 600 what?
So the numbers that you see here, we're trying to be conservative and
Right.
overestimate that. Really the cost, if you look on the high side, is probably going to be about $673. We just overestimated that to be safe in trying to give actual numbers here to look at. So.
Because we don't know how
Thanks.
many employees will take the benefits, that way we kind of gave you kind of some scenarios, 45 out of the 67 employees take benefits, that would be the cost. 50 out of 57, just to kind of show, because we don't know yet until we actually pull this out.
In that packet, you would have seen that there are 3 job descriptions. I'm asking that we take off and table the 187 bus dispatch one and only bring forth the 260 day. The reason why, I think we've had some internal discussion since we've posted this and think that we need to table that one for further discussion. However, we do have the 2 dispatch, one's a trainer, one's a dispatch. We'd like to move those from 187 to 260 days to ensure that we have somebody on staff all the time to provide training to our drivers. We're hoping to bring on 14 new drivers here, so we want to make sure that we've got enough time to do training, as well as have somebody in the office for dispatch. And we're not putting that on a supervisor, or we're not having to call in an administrative assistant to fill in that role because we have, our current dispatch out driving a bus.
Is that also the one that would let them be able to train more in the summer too?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So in that adding that transitioning those job descriptions from 187 to 260 would have that estimated annual cost of about $26,000, $27,000. Yeah.
So the reason that there's 2 job descriptions, one's for the driver trainer, one's for dispatcher. We're going to make only 2 of those positions. Currently, there's 3 people filling those positions. One of them will remain 187. The other one will become 260. The other 2 will become 260, but that could be 2 driver trainers are 260, or it could be 1 driver trainer and 1 dispatcher. So there's 3 jobs, but only 2 of them are going to become 260.
And then for our salary schedule modifications, right now to try to get our mechanic, we're going to need to hire a mechanic, and to get our compensation comparable with COC schools in the area, we feel that it would be most appropriate to make that position more marketable is to move it from column E to column G. Same thing with that bus driver dispatch, the trainer dispatch. Right now, that's on the same column as a bus driver. So there's really no recognition in compensation for having that added responsibility. So I think it's most appropriate to move that one over one column as well. And then that would put them on the same column as their supervisors. So we would look to move those 3 supervisors from range G to column H with that estimated annual cost of $12,500. That's the last slide for that.
Question for you. So since we're talking transportation, is the overtime portion and I missed this, but in the part-time employee health insurance, is the objective for both of those that with the intent, with the idea that we'll get more bus drivers? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Curtis, do you have some of the local area districts that you talked to this week about who offers benefits for part-time drivers?
Yeah, so we had that spreadsheet we set out. If you go across the top, the COC, Joplin does not, and there was one other school that did not in the COC. Was it? Nixa, yes, thank you.
Yeah, because they train.
And then as you look around the ring, which is really what we got to compare ourselves to, if we compare ourselves to how are we going to pull drivers from Springfield, the ring? Sparta, higher starting hourly rate, offers benefits. Rogersville offers benefits. Nixa, Willard offer benefits. Springfield offers benefits. Nixa is a contract employee. They do not offer benefits, but they do offer unemployment during the off periods, which is something schools don't do. So there's an unsaid benefit there. But if you look around the ring, excluding Nixa, we're the only one that does not offer benefits.
If we are the price comparison. I like a lot of these ideas, but my concern is if we're the only ones that are not offering benefits and our pay is still not competitive, why are they going to leave somewhere that has higher pay and benefits?
So
are we trying to retain? Are we trying to recruit?
Both. And I can tell you, and Dean can speak to this. And I just did rounding. We've started our rounding back up, and I believe all 4 that I spoke with talked about the family and the atmosphere at transportation. We have people that want to come back, and I know that we've had people talk to us. They love working for Ozark Schools. Specifically, they love working for transportation, the job they had. They made decisions based upon their family, what was best, and that is benefits. And if we could want to attract a group of people between the ages of 55 and Social Security age that are retired from their first job that are looking for a second, benefits is attractive to them more so than an hourly rate. If we're looking to get people back, we know that that's something that we could do that would be very beneficial for us.
We also hope this might be attractive to retired teachers, because once they retire, if they want to remain on the Ozark School District's benefit plans, they have to now provide that payment instead of being board paid. So if they don't want to work full time, but still want to get those benefits, we're hoping maybe that would attract them to stay with the district. They know the kids, they can continue on with the district and continue to get those benefits paid for.
That's good. I think this district can't do anything without people, right? The people are the most important part of it. I think they need to be paid equitably. They need to be paid as much as we can afford to pay them, because the kids matter and the employees matter. They're the 2 things that we're most about, right? I'm in favor of it.
And I do know that I don't know. Anecdotally, I believe and have been told that we could keep adding to the salary amount. Sparta, for example, is $25 an hour. We could chase Sparta. That's their starting. We could chase that, but we're just chasing a dollar amount that's moving, and we have a gap over here that we're not filling. And that's where we're going to fall a little bit short. And if we're 20 cents, 30 cents, Springfield, obviously there's a big difference. In Rogersville, yeah. And there was tax levy increases in some districts recently to help with salaries. So, I mean, And we're not looking for that. We're not asking for that. We're just saying that we're not going to chase that dollar amount.
As our new CFO for Ozark Schools, are we able to financially afford these changes?
I do. One of the things to this is I feel like adding the benefits will add those drivers. And then what that will do is we add these drivers is hopefully it'll bring down the overtime because we'll have those positions filled. So, one problem creates another. So as we can fill those positions, then naturally that overtime that's needed will also go down. So there will be some counterbalance to this. But again, the first thing we have to do to educate a child is get them to school. So, having this benefit to attract those drivers, is necessary because, kind of how Curtis, I guess, displayed and portrayed last month, the dire situation that they're in right now.
I've got one question. Fully believe that we need to do something, right? Fully believe. My one question or maybe even concern is you've got a percentage of drivers that this would really benefit from, right? But a percentage, and I shouldn't even say drivers, percentage of part-time employees that would benefit from this. But there's a percentage that already have it via another method, whether from a previous deal or spouse, something along that measure. My concern is those people, I don't know what that percentage looks like, they're kind of like, well, tough luck, right? Like it doesn't help you. Do we have a alternative plan? Do we have something, or I'm sure you've tried to take this into account, where it impacts all of them, not just a percentage of them?
Sure. No, you're right. Folks that can already get benefits through a spouse or other, type of employment like that, you're right, this would not. But if you look at the one thing that we compare to the other COC schools that's vastly different would be the benefits. Like Dr. Chesick said, we're maybe slightly different in some dollar amounts on hourly wage and stuff like that. That is the one glaring piece where so many districts around us offer it and we don't. And so we're just hoping to fill that gap. But you're right, this would not be a one solution fits all.
Right. Yeah. What's the longest tenured person that we have in a part-time spot? Do we know?
Good question.
Yeah.
39.9 years.
So I don't know where that individual is, but I morally would feel if that person's already being taken care of via Medicare or something along that lines.
Sure.
They've donated 40 years to us and we make changes and they don't, get what I'm saying?
Sure, I do.
Is there, in addition to if they do not elect, is there something that we can do as a separate pay scale to put them on if they don't take insurance?
There are situations where I've seen districts, let's say, for example, if you do not elect insurance, then they will give you some sort of stipend or monthly
I like that.
benefit for that. So let's say, for example, our benefits over 12 months cost about $6,700–6,800.
Yeah.
You can offer some sort of like $3,000 annual benefit to be paid over 12 months if you don't elect, to give those people as well. So
give them something as well.
That is, I don't, and I don't want to, not that I've studied all 587 school districts in Missouri. That's not widespread, but there are pockets where that does occur.
Okay.
We haven't looked at that cost though. Right, correct. We have not done any analysis on that cost. That is correct.
What was that last thing you said? What was that last thing you said?
We haven't done any analysis on what that additional cost would be. Yeah.
I would second his, thought on that. I guess I would just be concerned that we're kind of guessing that this is going to fill the gap. That we're not really recruiting new people. We're just, hey, we're plussing up the people who don't have it right now. And we're hoping that this might attract people, but is it just based on guesses or is it actually, I understand what you're saying, but I'm all about the benefits, but I don't know that this is going to fill in the need we have for the bus drivers.
Can I speak to that? I'm not them. And I want to hear your answer, but I want to say I've heard from several people when I will say Ozark needs bus drivers, come drive for us. They're like, no, they don't pay benefits. More than just a few.
Yeah.
May I interject? We went to the KY3, Dean and I went to the KY3 career fair earlier in the month. And the two strong leads that we got, they were individuals that were talking to us and saying, hey, it'd be great if you guys offered benefits. That was a common thing that those two brought up when they were talking to us, because they knew that they're retired educators and that themselves, and that's something that they were looking for was some help with coverage on their benefits.
What's the
What-
average hours spent by a part-time employee? 5 hours a day? So 25 hours a week, but
Yeah,
what percentage of this benefit is to their annual pay?
Right, specifically for bus drivers, typically 2.5 hours in the morning. For those routes, 2.5 hours in the afternoon, 5 hours a day times the 5 days hits that 25-hour requirement to get the insurance benefits part-time.
Any idea what, if this was cash money on the check, what
Sure.
type of raise that would be percentage-wise? Healthy?
Well, it's $6,700 a year for the benefits.
Yeah, okay.
So you're probably talking $400 to $500 a month would be what that is for those benefits. So could you push that to just all hourly wage, not the benefits? Yes. You know, but then we'd probably get up there where Sparta's at. Would we still recruit? I don't know. But at least what this would do is really I think this would attract a new area of employee, that retired teacher that already knows the kids, understands, you know, how to, you know, have a bus full of 60 kids, how to
The
calm
dynamic.
them down,
Yeah.
how to properly do those things. And that's a skill.
Yeah.
That is important. So you also have those relationships that might already be built with those kids. So that is one area of employee we think we might be able to really attract. Are those retired teachers that are looking to pay for those benefits.
Great.
One thing I see with it is it levels the playing field where we have two big gaps right now, and that's benefits and pay potentially. And we can't fix both today, but I think this fills a big gap and does open some things from a retention standpoint, and maybe does recruit a different person coming in. So that at that point, maybe there could be a point where we have to revisit and look at what other options are out there, but you have to kind of create that foundation and that standard. And that's what I feel like this is doing, is recreating, you know, the foundation of what it looks like to work for Ozark. And then, you know, we can evaluate that going forward. As of right now, we're kind of talking about apples and oranges when it comes to recruiting, you know, for Ozark and these roles. So I think it's pretty important.
Hey, one last question on the retired teachers. Does that affect their peers since they're not teaching? It is not considered coming back to school where it would affect their retirement?
I will need to check.
Okay.
100% on that. You know, there's critical shortage pieces. They're not working in a certified role. Those rules seem to change every year.
Yeah.
Like they had an exemption for 2 years and I can't remember when that exemption ends.
Right.
So I would need to double check it back for you to give you a 100% answer.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a little bit like benefits dollars. There's a little bit different than paycheck dollars that get taxed. And you can't really buy a group insurance policy the way the school district can. I mean, like we have good insurance, right? So they can't really just go buy that with their paycheck dollars. So it's not quite the same.
I think it's worth looking into. I acknowledge your concerns, but I think it's a dangerous area. You start looking into some of those, trying to make up for lack of benefit or the unfairness of something like this. Looking into this, I encourage you to do some research into this and find out some more information, but pay attention to the discrimination piece of this for the people who are getting the benefit of the insurance but not getting a pay raise. Because there's both sides to that story of, well, are they going to waive their insurance because they want the pay raise? And then are they going to get sick and be unavailable to work because they don't have insurance to take care of them? So it's a tricky, slippery slope, fine line, whatever you want to say. It's something that we need to look into.
I don't even know if we would be allowed to do it, honestly, but
He
I
said
would
some
like to go
districts
back
do
to-
it. He said some districts do that.
it comes down to a couple of different things too. I'm not a proponent of that, but I would like to hit on that first slide, 'cause that really excites me. I love the idea that we're going to overtime because we just kind of glazed over the fact that people are going to get more money because they're going to be compensated for the time that they work over.
That's right.
I think sometimes the comp time is not, I mean, like, that is not a motivator sometime. I know that they sometimes will get another job so they can make more money and they won't take the extra hours. And you have just, I love that. And I am ready to vote for that.
Can I talk?
And that caused a snowball effect where somebody would cover someone's shift.
Exactly.
Want to use it, now someone else has to pay for that. So
And it's not a giant cost because you still, comp time is the same dollar amount. But it's a burden to your budget if they take it off. I mean, it is still a dollar amount. Also, the fact that you have to pay it out if they're not allowed to use it, if you're really going to follow the compensatory plan.
So on
So
a
are we-
sorry, ma'am.
Oh, no.
On a comparative, now yesterday, there was a big Go CSD meeting in St. Louis, so our attendance at the assistant suit meeting was pretty low. But there were 7 school districts present. Ozark was the only one that does comp. Everybody else has gone away from it or never used it.
I would entertain a motion to approve the items as presented.
Which items? That's what I wanted to ask. What are we approving?
The 4 items.
So I think you're requesting to hold, to table the 187 day.
Right.
Just, yes, sir,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, so the three others. We're gonna table the transportation bus dispatcher 187 day there's some.
So I move that we approve the overtime option as presented, the part-time employee health insurance option as presented, and the salary schedule modification as presented.
We would still like to approve the 260 day,
Okay.
the 260 day, moving,
Oh.
job description.
And let me finish my motion by saying the last sentence of approving the bus trainer dispatch additional day for 2 of the job descriptions.
Second.
Yeah, I guess a motion should really only have one subject, shouldn't it?
No, it's fine. I'm telling you, I'm going to go with your recommendation. I just don't know if it doesn't matter. I'm one person. I don't know if the part-time insurance is going to work, but if you believe that, I'm going to go. I don't like putting on
All- Any other discussion before we vote?
Share motions on the table in a second.
So now we can discuss.
There can be open discussion stuff, but
No, there should be.
if not, all in favor? Aye. Dustin? Any opposed? Unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. All right. Item C is approval of job descriptions.
Five storm shelters in every building. This is something that matches that level of fixing problems in the district. Giving benefits to the drivers is huge. It will be an amazing, attractive. So, I mean, when I look at check boxes of the ways that Ozark has grown and impacted their employees, this is one of those moments. So thank you on behalf of myself and all of transportation. This is huge. And food service and across the board. Thank you.
All right, so we'll try to make this one quick, a little quicker. So this one, the first one is a transportation SUV driver. This is a new position. Reason why we want to bring this one to you is because right now, we believe that this will actually help out our drivers. We have individuals, a lot of individuals that can get their Class E driver's license, and then now they can transport those smaller clubs that don't require a bus and a driver. And to take a bus out of an afternoon route, we have SUVs, we can use it. We believe that this is much more efficient use of our personnel. and safe.
And gas.
No, sir. No 15 passenger vans. No.
I am here asking to go basically back to our community resource liaison. If you remember back probably 2 years ago, we were going to maybe take a different direction with this position. Unfortunately, that didn't really pan out with the foundation. So this is really more the original job that that person did. So we did go, she is now hourly as well. And she is a 260-day employee. Basically, just we wanted to make sure her job description matched the job she's doing currently. Yeah, cleaning
And
it up.
she's okay with that, right? It's not like she agreed to one thing and then we're changing it on her.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Every motion should be single subject. So
Any opposed?
just do one at a time. What if somebody wanted to approve one but not the other?
Do we get unanimously approved?
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, we have a request to speak to the board. Cindy Dickens.
Right. Good evening. My name is Cindy Dickens, and I'm a concerned parent. I would like to thank the board for allowing me to speak. I will be addressing the MSBA proposed policy changes, particularly the language changes. I did take time to read all 13 policies under this agenda item. At first glance, the policies themselves seem to be on the agenda due to punctuation errors, simple changes in wording, as well as grammatical errors. However, there is something more sinister going on here. Over half of these policy changes include erasing the sex of a person. And let's be clear, there are only two sexes. The words he, she replaced with their, him, her replaced with the word them. The changes in which pronouns you use seem harmless, but you are going down a slippery slope that we are all too familiar with nowadays called gender ideology. Dr. Jay Richards states in an article in the Heritage Foundation that gender ideology is the source of the belief that children can be in the wrong body. It leads Californians to think that if a young girl feels anguish over her body, the doctor should not help her adjust to her body, but should make changes to her body, her surroundings, name, bathroom, pronouns to conform to her gender identity. It fuels the spread of concepts like gender identity, including the many new supposed identities such as non-binary and pansexual. And the telling phrase, sex assigned at birth, it inspires opaque proclamations such as trans women or women. Sex can only be XX or XY, period. We use gender identity and it allows, gender identity allows for being able to identify as anything an individual desires. If that is the case, then why hasn't my bank, good grief, identify as I identify as a millionaire, and I want to know where my millions of dollars in my bank account are. Gender identity intentionally steers away from the term sex because of that pesky thing called biology. I would implore this board to stop using those terms that are being pushed by gender ideologues, or soon you will have litter boxes in your bathrooms and dog houses for safe spaces. I would caution the district on outside influences who are on the surface harmless in the description they provide online. Two such groups include the Glow Center of Springfield and GLSEN. Here's how they describe themselves on their web pages. The Glow Center serves the LGBTQIA community in the Ozarks through support, resources, education, and advocacy to create a more inclusive and welcoming community where they can all thrive. With the help of their allies, Glow strives to make a positive impact on the community at large. GLSEN is an American education organization working to end discrimination, harassment, and bullying based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression to prompt LGBT cultural inclusion and awareness in K through 12 schools. Seems harmless, right? In a recent article by Fox News, Target is partnering with a K through 12 education group which focuses on getting districts to adopt policies that will keep parents in the dark on their child's in-school gender transition. providing sexually explicit books to schools for free, and integrating gender ideology at all levels of curriculum in public schools. GLSEN even calls for the gender ideology to be included in classrooms, yep, even math. It provides educators instructions on how they can make math more inclusive of trans and non-binary identities. How are they going to do this? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. That's right. They will do this by using pronouns like they and them in word problems. What does this have to do with your local organization like GLOW? Their website, they list GLSEN as a resource for youth. Don't think GLOW is trying to come into your town. Ask the people of Nixa what they thought when a certain former councilwoman, who was also the former youth coordinator, organized a pool party for what they call Rainbow Kids and Youth. She also advocates for schools in and around Springfield to start up GSA clubs, which stands for Gay Straight Alliance. All of this is a front for pushing gender identity and ideology in schools. This infiltration has been happening for years, make no mistake. It has crept in and it will continue to creep in until it has a stranglehold on all schools across this country. It will happen if you don't take a stand. I admittedly do not know all the businesses and individuals who sponsor or donate to this district. I do, however, think it would be in the best interest of this district to cross-reference those individuals and businesses that are involved with the GLOW Center and consider cutting ties with any who support idea or gender ideology through the support of GLOW. I know this district has faced this issue last year and had the courage to defeat the MSBA's proposed policy changes. I would ask that you do the same now. And Christina, I want to applaud you for what you tried to do here today, and I hope that the board reconsiders what you proposed as well. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Dickens, that school district that was partnering with GLSEN and Target, that was in Missouri, wasn't it? Yeah, Kansas. It's Missouri. Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
William Downey.
You guys all bus drivers? Any other bus drivers out here? Could you guys stand up? Can we give you guys applause?
Yeah, that's right.
I should like to thank the driver who doesn't hit my truck on Pastoral Road in the morning. I want to say a word of encouragement to the board. Maybe not the kind of encouragement you like, but a little bit of an encouragement. I know most all of you are born again believers, meaning you have accepted Jesus as your Savior and you're placed in the kingdom of God. And I want to read a few verses from Corinthians and Revelations. My time up?
Sorry, no, that was me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived, neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, or adulterers, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greedy, nor the habitually drunk, nor verbal abusers, or swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. Such were some of you, but you have washed, but you were sanctified, but you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and in the Spirit of God. Now, this is for you believers. If you don't believe in Christ, you're not born again, this is not for you. And because these things influence how we decide things. And we exist as believers in the kingdom of God. And the kingdom of God does not stop on Jackson Street or the curb there out there. The kingdom of God is everywhere. And we are accountable to it, especially us believers. And in Revelation speaks of days to come. And in the days to come, things are going to get a lot worse. Things that are going to come down to this board, policies, rules, laws, and things like that are going to be terrible, are immoral,
and just against the nature of God, And we have to deal with that. And in Revelations 4, John to the 7 churches who are in Asia, and grace to you and peace from him who is, and who was, and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits who are before the throne, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the king of the earth. To him who loves us and released us from the sins by his blood, and he made us into a kingdom, priests, you are priests, to his God and Father. To him be the glory and the dominion forever and ever. Amen. Behold, he is coming in the clouds, and every eye will be on him, and even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of earth will mourn over him. And so be it. Amen. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. We have a responsibility as believers existing in the kingdom. And that responsibility is doing things that are natural to God. And I want to pray that you guys will have the spirit of John the Baptist, who stood up to his government, and he had to suffer the consequences. And you may have to suffer the consequences for what you believe. But that's just the way it is. And this earth is just temporary. And all the things here are temporary. It's not life or death most of the time. So I want to leave you with this. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this board and the time they give us. And we want to pray that you will give them the wisdom and the knowledge they need to rule over this place. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Now you're done. Thank you, sir.
All right, Ron Sanders.
Good evening. This is my first time here. First, I'd like to thank you guys for bringing us a flood of serotonin in here earlier. It was pretty awesome. I know that this may be Craig Carson's little secret way of making things wonderful here. That was pretty awesome. I'd like to talk about narratives, okay? We're dealing with narratives. Now, a narrative is something that is created. It's created out of ideas. It's created out of, thoughts, processes. Sometimes it's created out of things that may or may not be real. And narratives are created all the time. In our legal system, narratives are used for both sides of a story going into court. That those narratives, they pretty much sorry about this. They pretty much, admit that there's no truth in either of the narratives. They are just two stories. Okay. And when you're dealing with narratives, people can use narratives and all of the processes within those narratives to gain power in a conversation, to gain power, in a relationship, to gain power in a friendship and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. What we're talking about is not only narratives, but we're also talking about facts, truth, and reality. Facts, truth, and reality trump narratives, period. That's what a couple people have already said. I'm just saying it in a little bit of a different way. We understand that these tables are white, these chairs are all black, right? Now, we could argue about the tone, the hue, the contrast, and brightness of those colors. And we could create a narrative that we could discuss about exactly what color white it is or anything like that. But the basic fact, if you brought 100 people in here, 100 out of 100 would say that that's a white table and that's a black chair, period. Okay? So I want y'all to understand the difference in what we were talking about earlier and what everybody's concern is. And I think that Christina's suggestion that was not accepted here was on point to recognize that fact, those truths, that reality, that binary of man and woman, male and female. Now, why is this important? Because we are all grounded in fact. Have you guys ever read any of the different studies that people have done where they try to challenge and see how far you can be pushed until you accept an alternate reality? Anybody who's ever heard of SEER school understands that people going through that survival, I'm muttering my words here. Anybody who goes through that school has to understand that they have to hold on to reality through all of the narratives and all of the challenges that they are presented with. Our children are being challenged with these same things in their mind, and it messes with their mental health in such huge ways that we may not account for. Okay? If we brought a kid in here and all of us authority figures said that's not white and that's not black, and we berated him or her to the point where they're finally accepting that that's a green table and that's a yellow chair, and they walk out of here, I don't know what the hell all those people were thinking, but I had to just accept their reality or else I was going to continue to be berated. And that's a horrible thing to do to kids. That's what this gender fluidity does. When you start putting it into policy, you are starting to allow that reality to slip. You are starting to allow children to be subjected to narratives. And children may capitalize on that amongst one another, using it for power over one another, using it to bully one another, using it to disrupt the legitimate process here of learning. And that's a horrible thing to allow happen over such a simple thing as a binary, which is scientific fact, and to allow it to slip into anything else is to allow somebody to try to convince me that that's not a white table and that's not a black chair. And it horribly destroys the confidence and the mental health of these kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say something about what Mr. Sanders just said. I agree with what you said about the narrative and the story. You know, sex is a physiological truth, right? A physiological construct. We differentiate in sports based on sex. That's why Title IX was created in the first place, to make sure things were fair and safe because our bodies are different. But gender and psychological, the stories that you were talking about, Mr. Sanders, those things are psychological things. And that's for the student and their family to decide. But when we decide things in here in our schools, we decide based on their bodies, based on their physical chromosomal makeup. That was a good point.
Need a motion to adjourn. Motion
Second.
by Amber,
Second.
second by James. All in favor? We are adjourned.